Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
What's up, fam? Today, I've got an epic duo of humans, Krista Berlincourt and Danny Steiner. They're the founders of Kensho Health, which has been getting a ton of attention and has been described as the antithesis of Goop, merging together holistic healthcare, data, and technology into a new online platform. Krista previously worked at financial and tech startups and had an extremely successful career. And Danny invested in a number of purpose-driven companies and advised Fortune 500 companies in digital innovation strategies. What I love about their stories is that they both had it really good in the eyes of most people. I mean, they were crushing it. But there were things along their journeys that caused them to pivot into where they're at today. They share these stories with us on the show, and we also discuss a bunch of other fun stuff. Krista talks about something I was really interested in learning about, which is what it's like to raise money from VCs for a conscious business with alternative goals to just making money, and how putting people first can actually mean more ROI. Danny tells us what it's like to work with a female co-founder and goes into what an ideal balance of feminine and masculine energies can bring to the table in a business. Guys, I'm a big fan of both of these humans, not just because of everything they're accomplishing on paper, but more so because of the great energy and positive change they bring to the world. I loved this episode, and I think you will too. Enjoy, guys. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Really excited to have you guys. Really excited. You know, I always start my podcast actually with a question that, to be honest with you, I took the idea from the very first meditation group that I went with you guys. And I don't know if it's something that you did it that day, Danny, but like, I love the question as an icebreaker. So I'll ask you, Danny, what was your last oh shit moment?
I have to say it was this morning as I was reading an Atlantic article about Trump potentially not leaving office if he loses the election. That was probably, I was like, oh, I think I intuitively, I knew that and I'd read about it before, but for some reason this article framed it in a way that made it more real than I had previously thought. So that was my most recent oh shit.
That's amazing. Shit.
It wasn't very work related or personally related, but yeah.
It's definitely a no shit. Krista, what was your last hell yeah moment?
About an hour ago.
Nice.
Did something I've been thinking about obsessively, but haven't done for 2 years. So that was good. That was it. Just was looking at accounting and fixing some things. Fixing money. It was good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Before we get into Kensho Health and running a conscious business, I want to just touch a little bit on each of you guys' past. Krista, you were like living life before Kensho. Like, you had a high paying job, you were flying private jets. I mean, you were living this LA epic life that people like would love to live. Like, share a little bit about that and where there was a shift.
Repeating a little bit because we were coaching partners. You know the insides of my soul here. I think there's a book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain, which if you haven't read it, highly recommend. But it talks about the soul line and the goal line. And I climbed that first mountain and had a lot of external success, which created financial cushion and. But my heart wasn't in it. My heart wasn't fulfilled. And so I think there's a point, and I know there's a point in every person's life in their career. We just start in different lines. Some people start on the soul line and then they realize their career isn't fulfilling them materially. There isn't enough sort of security in the financial byproduct of that to build a life that feels like it's building you. I started on the goal line and then realized it was time to switch to the soul line. And for me, that really came out of asking myself, what do I want to do with this one precious life? And what do I want to be known for? And that made it really clear that I needed to build something where passion and purpose came together. And to be fair, all of the companies that my last company was very much a leader in the conscious profit space and was really known for that. But I wanted to do it in the same way, with the same leadership strategy, but in a space that I deeply cared about, where I had personal attachment and conviction to really change it.
That's really interesting, because if you're saying too that the previous company was actually in that space, but it still didn't get to you, to your passions, and that caused you to shift. That's really interesting.
I think, there's lots of conscious profit companies out there.
Of course.
Like, I think Patagonia is a rad brand and I deeply respect them, but I also don't want to work at Patagonia. Not because I don't think they're amazing. It just doesn't bring purpose to my soul.
That's a great point. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Danny, you were in media and tech consulting, and then you're one of the founders of Brami Snacks, which is a highly successful company. You could find the products in Whole Foods, right? You've got, what actually got you excited about that first?
Brami?
Yeah.
So I had switched over to the vegan side around 6 years ago. And soon after that, I met Aaron, who is the CEO and founder of Brami, and quickly resonated with his passion for what he was bringing and thought I could do a lot of good in the world. I love the idea of creating a snack and a product line that was all around savory, very healthy vegan eating. And so that's what got me interested in that.
Nice. And then what started, I know you've told me in the past that there was some issues internally with communication. There's some things that started kind of internally not working out for you. Where did that passion leave? Why did it go away? What happened?
Yeah, I think, without going into too much detail there, I think that there just, at a certain point, there just became kind of a very obvious distinction in what the future of the company should be between Aaron and myself. We're on very good terms now, and I actually wished one of the other founding members, Dylan Dandurand, happy birthday today.
Nice.
Right, but yeah, I think there was just a difference in strategy. There was some bumps in the road in early management, which can happen, and I've certainly experienced at Kensho as well, and just some of the handling of that stuff I think could have been better. But ultimately, from more of a feeling perspective, I didn't think that I was making a big difference in the work that I was doing. I thought that yes, it's good to have more vegan products out there, and ones that are enjoyable and can substitute for snacks or other other items that are not vegan. But I didn't think it was necessarily going to change the overall conversation or change habits or anything like that. And so I realized that it's not how I wanted to be spending my time. And I'd put it all in, Aaron and I and Dylan were working at the co-packing factory, literally taking out the bad beans, mixing the product together. I'd spent 12 hours with this amazing Indian couple who ran this co-packing factory, and we'd have lunch together, with our hairnets on and everything, outside of Philadelphia. It was a wild, weird experience, but I realized if I'm going to be putting in this much effort, I want it to be going towards something that I think can really make the world a better place. And so, yeah, that kind of got me to
So you had something that was scaling like crazy. Like I said, it's in Whole Foods and things like that. Money was definitely there. It sounds like it's the why. It's the why is the one thing that wasn't there necessarily. Yeah. Could you say that?
I thought it was. And then for me, it shifted. It shifted, and the why became a little bit confusing. So I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. It's interesting about how that shifted. And it's funny. I feel all the time I put myself into situations where I'm this is my mission and my why, and this is how I feel about something. And then I feel bad about changing my mind. There's this thing where it's well, no, because I said I felt this way, or I was like this, it's but you know what? Like, you have the right to change your freaking mind if you want, like whether it is from a mission that you had 3 years ago or 15 freaking minutes ago. And I just think that that's important for people to understand. And it's like, if it's something that's really deep, and it's not just like, oh, I'm just changing my mind every 5 minutes because I don't know what I want. But if it's more so like, it's like deep purpose and that just shifted, it's like, well, it shifted, you know? I think it's important.
I think giving yourself permission to shift like that's important.
Absolutely.
Evolve and learn and get exposed to other ideas.
Yeah. So both of you guys left these lifestyles that you had. They were both successful. They were both great companies, but there was something inside that didn't really resonate. And you were looking for something different, whether you knew it or not. Rumor has it you guys were at Burning Man when you guys came up with the idea or the decision or the idea for Kensho. Let's be honest, like mushrooms, acid, like what were we on, guys? Like, come on.
Technically, we weren't at Burning Man yet. So technically, a mutual friend of ours had actually gone through a little bit of a heartache, a long-term relationship, rebounded, came to LA, and I was like, shit, my heart hurts. Speaking to a friend, and he said, come to Burning Man. I have a camp. Just get yourself there. I'll take care of the rest. And I was like, cool. Okay. Not my first burn, but I didn't have anything planned, didn't have an RV, didn't have a tent, didn't have a car, didn't have it figured out. And I texted the group thread and was like, hey, I'm coming from LA by myself. If anyone else is driving out, let me know. And this guy slid into my DMs and was like, hey, that's super unsafe. Get a tea and maybe you can join my caravan. And that guy was Danny. So we went for a walk from Earth Cafe here in Venice, Santa Monica. And we just started talking about life and what we were passionate about. And we both were in this very interesting liminal space, really like we didn't know what was next, but we both had given ourselves the freedom and space to figure that out. And we were both exploring discovery platforms. He was looking at the meditation space. Interestingly enough, went back to become a meditation teacher. And I was looking at the coaching space. And I went back to become a coach. But then we went to Burning Man.
But that walk just felt like it was kind of, is there something, you like, what is it called? Catfishing? There was a lot of moments of like, wait, what are you working on? What are you interested in?
And the parents thing, I think, we both, and I know you love your mom too, Seb. You guys have a close relationship. I think it's really lucky when you really do care about your parents. Every family is different, but Danny and I were talking about how we had both, our curiosity in this space had really blossomed out of our own ability to make ourselves better, to grow as people and to find well-being, both mentally, physically, and then ultimately spiritually. And this practice for me of coaching was sort of my gateway drug, and his was meditation. And because of that, he wanted to find a meditation teacher for his coach or for his dad. And I wanted to find a coach for my mom. We were both like projecting a prescription. But we were like, I just want to help people. It's so hard to help people. I love people. But really the people were our parents. Then we went to Burning Man and had so much fun. We did.
Yeah, we camped, right next to my tent and became very good friends with a lot of the friends that I went with, and I became very good friends with the friend that she went with, and and then quite famously, at least in our small little company, Krista wrote a very long text to me after the burn saying, "Hey, I have this crazy idea. What do you think about we work on this together? I think there's something much bigger here." So I flew. I was living in New York at the time, and I flew back to LA and spent some time with her. And that was the beginning of a kind of a long, mutual courting process where we were feeling each other out and feeling if this was something we wanted to work on. So it's just quite a lucky thing that we were both and as Krista was mentioning, this liminal space of thinking very intentionally about what we wanted to do next and wanting it to be big and wanting it to be very conscious.
That's awesome. What an epic way to give birth to something, because people talk about ideas all the time. Everybody has an idea for an app, and just for it to be that intentional and that purposeful, it's epic. And so the way I see Kensho is like this, like a ZocDoc or a Yelp for holistic health, right? Making holistic health accessible to more people. Is that a good description?
Yeah, I think so. I think with a little side dish of research. So the one thing that's very different from maybe a ZocDoc is that we know that holistic health is hard to navigate because there's no general practitioner that you go see. And there's no referral network. When you're working in conventional medicine, like you go to the one guy and he sends you to the next guy or the next woman. And we've really created a product that helps you navigate based on your own symptoms or goals, using original research and open sourcing a ton of research that's never been seen before. And then we kind of look to the world of dating apps, believe it or not, weird one. Because why does healthcare feel so inhuman? Why do you know nothing about your doctor and they know everything about you? Have you never seen a picture of their face when you look them on ZocDoc? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think just further to that point, the importance of bedside manner in a relationship with a doctor or with an acupuncturist or any of these folks is often as important as their education. Like, how do you resonate with this person? Do they get you? Do they understand who you are? And do you resonate with where they're coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. There's this a stat that shocked me when I went on your website a couple months ago, and it said that 87% of deaths are the result of preventable, chronic, and lifestyle-driven illnesses. I was like, 87% of deaths are preventable, chronic, and lifestyle-driven illnesses. Krista, can you talk to that? Can you explain that a little bit, how that is?
Yeah, I was speaking to actually an investor that I was speaking to. It's lifestyle, just life. It's basically, how are you living?
Mm-hmm.
So, you think about diseases. Stress is a disease. Anxiety is a disease. Dis-ease, where we have emotion and really spiritual struggle when we feel tense, when we feel, not even in the place of diagnostic, but when you simply feel like shit, something is going on inside of you. And when we don't have the tools to name that emotion or name that feeling or name that, stomach thing that's upset about food, that over time compounds into something that can be diagnosed and symptomatic. So, anxiety gives way to hypertension, which gives way to heart disease, which gives way to a heart attack. Stress and hormonal imbalance gives way to skin inflammation, which gives way to infection, which gives polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so for us, it's really about, I think it's funny in conventional medicine because you treat the symptom. You go in with, a rash on your face, or I was reading something from one of our providers yesterday. We have a thing on polycystic ovarian syndrome. And one of the first giveaways is hormonal acne in women and hair growth. Like, holy shit, those are pretty visible. If you're a woman, you're going to notice that very quickly. But what happens if you go to the doctor, if you went to a dermatologist, they would give you a pill to get rid of the hair growth and a pill to get rid of the acne. Well, where's the polycystic ovarian syndrome? It's still in there. It's not gone. And so for us, we look at the root cause. We promote a holistic way of thinking about your being and your life.
There's something you said that reminded me something, Krista, that when you and I were doing coaching together, and by the way, so I've done meditation with Danny. He's an amazing meditation teacher, and Krista's an epic coach as well. So we were talking about some deep stuff. And I think I don't know if you were the first person to say this to me, but I think it was the first time that sometimes you hear things different times in your life. And then at one point it clicks, right? But I think you were one of the first people that said to me that when I was talking about something that was giving me anxiety that I wasn't realizing was necessarily giving me anxiety, but my body was in a different shape. Yeah, exactly.
So it was in, my shoulders were down and I was closed up, and you were explaining to me, you're like, look at your body right now while you're talking about this specific subject. And I was like, what? And then you explain, you're like, and that's kind of an explanation of what you were saying. It's like, hey, if you're feeling like shit about something, like there's something else going on, right? So and I think it was a really interesting thing for me, because I started thinking about my body and my posture in different situations throughout my life when I talk about stuff. And it's like, oh, like I am not shoulders up, open, feeling, empowered. I am closed up. I'm closed up, and like I'm getting anxiety about this. So I just thought it was really something really interesting.
Yeah, it's such a giveaway. It's such a giveaway on what you're actually feeling.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things for anyone who's listening is not to blame yourself for when you're shutting down, but rather getting curious about what the root might be. So if you notice you're closing, don't look at yourself and say like, you jerk, you're shutting down, you're so small, but really like, what am I doing in my life where I'm not serving me well? And generally that's like one root cause, which is just putting your well-being first. And most people are deferential to society and their families and their communities and their companies to make sure that they're satisfying their needs.
Right.
But we don't need the same things.
And to extend off of that, I think it's a good idea too, that when you do feel that anxiety or something going on, it's almost like thank that anxiety, because it's actually talking to you and it's telling you something. Like you said, be curious about it, let it pass through you and see what's going on, as opposed to just fighting it off with a pill and just getting rid of the symptom, which will later on explode. So
I think one thing that I try to use in myself and that was gifted to me is rename your anxiety. Don't call it anxiety, call it awareness. I'm hyper aware that I'm thinking about my relationship. I'm hyper aware that I'm thinking about work. I'm hyper aware of my home, whatever it is that's giving you anxiety, my children.
Interesting.
It's a gift. It's a gift of presence and awareness in that topic.
I like that. Hyper aware. I'm really effing hyper aware right now. No, that's really funny though. I love that. I love that way to look at it. It's really awesome. So guys, how Danny, is this like a good time? You think it's great timing when it comes to from a company standpoint, like holistic health? Is this like the time to expand and scale holistic health from a business standpoint to the world? Is the world now finally ready for this? Maybe 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a thing. Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, NAUM.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, and certainly 10 years ago. You're talking about ideas. I don't think our idea is that novel, to be honest. And we've spoken to dozens of people who have had the same idea, a lot of practitioners who have tried. It's about the execution and the timing. And I think that our timing has been very good. And I think that even over the 2+ years that we've been working on this, almost 3 years now, the shift in perspective from investors, from media, from just folks we're speaking to has been dramatic. And when we began this, we had to justify what we were doing and the space that we were interested in. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore in conversations we're having. Some of that has to do with the place our company in particular has gotten to, but I think a lot of that has to do with the acceptance and bullishness in the world around holistic health, and in particular in the investment community in the States. So I think that's interesting to note. And I think that, Krista and I were both listening to this talk yesterday with Defined Ventures and Forerunner and the CEOs of Folks and Hims and Her. Great conversation. And one of the takeaways for me was Kirsten Green of Forerunner was saying, in these 5 months of pandemic, we've essentially, sped forward 5 years in sort of evolution and development of of health and healthcare. And I think one of those major ways is thinking about health more holistically, thinking about the whole person, considering mental health, considering spiritual health. So yeah, I think our timing's great. It feels like there's a lot of tailwinds, not only for holistic health, but digital health. Investment in digital health companies is tremendously high in the first half of 2020, actually, despite the pandemic. Actually, it will be the biggest year yet in terms of digital health investment. So yeah, it feels like there's momentum within our company and without.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that investment aspect. I was going to ask you that, Danny. You know, raising capital is a gnarly process. Like, it's not easy to ask for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to build your dream. And so when I remember thinking about when you guys were starting to raise money, I was like, I wonder if it's easier to raise money when you're building a conscious business, or if it's, you know, way harder. So you were kind of essentially answering that question, talking about the timing. So what is that like? Because essentially when you're raising money, people are like, here's my money so that you can 10x my money. That's essentially the bottom line of a venture capitalist, right? Like, traditionally. So what is the difference when you're doing it for a conscious business? Are they a little bit easier? Are they harder on you? Like, you're basically looking to scale holistic health, and it may not be as simple as just like, you know, we're just going to 10x your money, you know, with this formula kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll let Krista answer this one.
It's like dating. Fundraising is just like dating. And so in the same way that if you're dating and you're not yet conscious, you're like, I'm just looking for someone who's cool that I want to hang out with. Now, if you say, and that understands this awakened mindset with which I approach my life, your selection narrows significantly. And it just means for us that because we're building a conscious business, we want conscious people touching the business. And we have felt the impact every time we've allowed someone who wasn't really anchored in that mission, didn't have a personal attachment to really make healthcare more human, to change that. If they don't care about that thing, then their drivers, you know, and that's the same issue I think we had with my last company as well. But like, what's that KPI? And so long as you put people over profits, where it will drive profits. It just does, because people are the thing that drives profits. It's money. Money comes from people. It's not just magic. But more often than not, when you're fundraising, you're going to meet a lot of people where the primary KPI they have is just how quickly can you scale it. And if you're looking at it that way, you'll probably make a lot of decisions that are predatory, that undercut the consumer, that don't put the human first at the center of the problem, that don't have human-centric design, that have business models that are adversarial to the people you're actually serving so that you can get rich quick. It does mean, though, that just like dating, you build a big lightning rod and lightning can strike. And so our brand has struck people who believe in what we're doing. And it means that the investors we have are really fucking good people. Like, they're great people who we like spending time with, who care. But you just have to hunt a little harder.
That's great. I love that. You know, I'd like to make you repeat that so people just get that ingrained in their heads, but just the whole idea of putting people over profits, and people are the one that bring in the profits anyways. So the profits will scale by putting people over profits. And the other thing that I'm getting from you on that is that you're like, and these investors are freaking awesome, right? I love these people. Like, I actually enjoy hanging out with them, as opposed to that kind of old school vibe of, you know, these VCs are up my ass. Like, I kind of like give them what they want. And it's like this like fear-based kind of relationship between the investors and the founders. So big difference.
It is different. And actually, Danny asked a really good question the other day. My calendar's been a little stacked recently. We're getting ready to launch the next version of our product, which is a big endeavor. And he was like, is this meeting for you, or is it for this dude who's our investor? And I was like, it's for me. So as a CEO, as a founder, remembering your investors are there to serve you. you're the one who's making them money. They're not working their asses off. They're not, doing 20-hour days. They're not trying to build something. They just wrote you a check. And that check came from a limited partner who put money into their fund. Like, let them help you. But yeah, with our investors, I mean, one, I tore down his house with a sledgehammer. That was fun. And went out to that in the early days. And another, we've invited her to social functions in New York. And, Danny went to his house in the South Bay and had a morning tea and meditation. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. So
we're really lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds that way. And it sounds like you are, because of the energy that you're putting out and the purpose that you have behind it. So outside of Kensho being essentially a conscious company by its nature, what makes Kensho a conscious company in terms of like your employees and what you're doing with the profits right now? I know that you guys are donating profits through a certain amount of time through November. Like, what's going on with that? What, outside of just the nature of the company being conscious, what are you guys doing to do things that improve the lifestyle of all the stakeholders involved?
Danny, why don't you take that?
Sure. Yeah, in terms of profits, we're actually donating all revenue to an organization through the rest of the year, through the rest of 2020.
Wow.
And this organization is the, I'm just blanking on it. Krista, help me.
National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network, which
Thank you.
is
NQTTCN.
NQTTCN. Super
Long acronym.
Yeah.
And their managing director, Erica, is absolutely terrific, and we've connected with him on a number of occasions, and really believe in this organization. And we were quite activated by the BLM movement, and wanted to put our money where our mouth and our feet and our hands holding signs were. And we thought the best way to do this, and since we have control of the company, we could do it. And so that's what we're doing for the rest of the year, and we're very excited to do that. In addition to helping NQTTCN with strategy and marketing support, and really being a soundboard for them. And then other ways in which we are a conscious company internally. I think it's just the way that we treat each other, that Krista and I show up for each other as friends, as partners, which isn't always perfect, but I think when it's not, we talk about how it's imperfect, and we get to the bottom of it and try to address it. And in the way that our team shows up, and the way that we support them and care for them. More specifically, every time we have a team meeting, we do a check-in where we ask, how are people feeling? What are they thinking about? What are they bringing into this space that we're creating? And that's proven to be incredibly helpful. Sometimes, a dog has died, or you're very sick, or you're worried about a loved one, or whatever it may be. And that should be considered as you're working. Not to say that we don't expect high standards and great execution and output. We do. And I think that you can, in a non-cynical way, you get more out of your team if you care about them, if you relate to them, if they are invested in what you're building. And we believe that everyone on our team is truly an owner of the company. And then we do meditations twice a week. Sometimes Krista leads, sometimes I lead, and yeah. So we try to practice what we preach.
Love that. That's great. That's a lot of great practices there. Danny, you've got a female co-founder. I've got 2 male co-founders. I've mainly had experience being a co-founder with men, and you did in the past as well. And I think most guys have experience being co-founders with other men. I think that's, I don't know what the stats are on that. I should look that up, but it's probably really high. What is it like to have a co-founder as a female? How has it made the experience better in a way? Because I know I've done a lot of business with women, and there's a lot of things that are just a lot better. So I don't know if, what is that like for you? Can you share that?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's just an obvious balance between the masculine and feminine that is really, really productive and helpful in any partnership, and especially in running a company. I think that there's certainly reflecting on my experience at Brami and comparing it to this, there's a level of connection and care and feeling that we certainly never gave each other at Brami, and which I think was quite negative, really.
Yeah.
I think that there's so many benefits to I think to working with someone of the opposite sex, like whether you're a woman working with a man working with a woman. So yeah, I don't even know if it's necessarily men, like cisgendered, heterosexual, whatever it may be. I think it's just like masculine and feminine energy, like having a balance there, and that can come in men or with women. So I think just having a balance of energies and experiences is perhaps the most important thing. I mean, Krista and I balance each other in a number of different ways, from background to the sort of energy that we bring to different personality types. Like there's so many to experience, to to sort of like our own geniuses. Like there's so many different ways, and I think generally speaking, any partnership that has good balance in these ways is going to be more successful.
Absolutely. Krista, you're obviously clearly a conscious leader. Both of you are. What do you think are the two most important traits that a conscious leader has to bring to the table today?
Feel into that. Honesty. I think honesty of self, honesty of what you see, honesty of what's possible, honesty. I think that self-honesty is the biggest, because that internal tension and anxiety tells you something is wrong. And every time I've done something that was a disservice to our business, or that I could have done differently, is because I didn't trust that intuition, that self-honesty of this doesn't feel right. And a conscious leader has that, because you're leading from a place of intuitive knowing, of instinct. I think that's a better word for the men listening to this. So I think trusting your instincts and then having self-honesty. And then, putting people over profits is really just integrity. But that honesty should drive integrity of, is this an integrity? Is this an integrity with the values that we've created as a company? Are we really making decisions based on those values? Is this integrity with the mission? I really can't say enough good things about the CEO of my last company. Mission, and every decision was measured on its values, and people always came over profits. And it was also a disruptive business. It was a space that hadn't been developed yet in the financial services, the fintech space, which now there's like 500 companies in the last 9 years that have done really good things. I think for us, it's holding to that. So if you're building a business right now that's hard, just hold yourself to that and know that the challenge is just a part of the journey, but you don't waver the honesty and the integrity in order to get the outcome. You just know that it's teaching you to be a better person. Profit first, become dishonest in yourself, and that integrity goes first.
I think that honesty, specifically with yourself, like you explained it, is so important. And then, people over profits through integrity. How you connected that, I think, beautifully. Danny, what about yourself? Two traits of the conscious leader.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me next. I always have trouble answering least or most or best answers. Yeah,
superlatives, you know, it's the son of a lawyer in him.
there are a lot of good answers.
Here's
Really good hair. Really good hair is definitely. Yeah, I think humility is important, and I think that ties into what Krista was talking about in terms of honesty, and also self-knowledge. And I think to have that, we have to practice humility in order to look again. Like, oh, I thought I dug that up. Oh no, there's still a little bit more there. For me, that's around communication, and that's certainly one way in which Krista and I think having a female co-founder, to answer back on that question again, has been so helpful. Is I think men often we certainly don't over communicate. Oftentimes under communicate, as is the case with me. And so that's something that I've had to come back to over and over and over again throughout our relationship. So I think humility would be one. And then honestly, this sounds a little bit, I guess, a little woo-woo, but like showing up with love and having fun. And I think if you do that, you're not going to be a jerk. You're not going to be an unconscious whatever leader. If you're leading with your heart, if you're enjoying if you're having fun what you're doing, it's just, I think, really difficult to have those things occur at the same time.
We forget to have fun so much. It's so important to get back into that inner child and play, man. Even if you're working, so in an ideal world, you get to be playing and having fun and doing it with love at work. I love it. That's the holy grail, Guys, how do we get a hold of? Did you want to say something, Danny? You want to add?
Yeah, one thing to touch upon that subject is Krista actually put forth to our team, I believe last week or early this week, that if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And I'll let her kind of elaborate on that, but I think it's an important one.
So funny, I just gave my whole body chills, because the thing I said earlier was that, I've had an anxiety around something for a long time. And then you realize, like, could you change it? Could you do it differently? And usually the answer is yes. If you're the leader, then you can. Like that recognition of, if you are a founder or a CEO of a company and something is not fun, then what are you doing? Because you have the power within you to change every single thing. You have the power to create a dynamic where you're setting your team up with values and structure and processes that are fun. You have the ability to empower them to have fun. And so I was looking at, one of our teams, and I was like, you guys are not having fun with this. Why aren't you having fun? It should be fun. We should, if this isn't making you laugh, it's not going to make our customers feel anything. And I think there's this cultural belief that like business is business and business is hard and like you need to wear a suit. I'm like, talk to the souls of those people. I bet you they're not having a lot of fun. It's a waste of life.
So important.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a CEO or founder and you have some sort of a leadership position, I think it's super worth looking into this and then proposing it to the person above that allows you to make a decision, or still proposing it to your team. And I guarantee that your team will outperform the other teams that are not having fun, Yeah. So guys, how do we get a hold of Kensho? Can people just go download it on the App Store, Instagram account, anything you'd like to share?
We are much like Airbnb, you go to their site, you find a home, you come to Kensho, you find a holistic health provider. So www.kenshohealth.com. And we're also at Kensho Health on Instagram and Facebook.
I love it. I love it, guys.
Kensho is with a K, Kensho.
Excellent, guys. Well, really appreciate you guys being on. You guys are epic conscious leaders, and I'm super proud of you, and you guys are an inspiration. So please keep being you. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Seth.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You know, it takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content, and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.